Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made this heart-shaped rose wreath for Halloween, very similar to the one I made for Valentine's Day, but with two colors instead of one. I'll write the list of supplies along with where I purchased everything from. I know this video is super long, but I wanted to show you exactly what I did step by step. So let's get started. I started out by laying my pieces of felt down. I had to use 3 sheets of felt since they were not big enough to cover the entire metal frame, and I'm going to trace around the frame. This is going to be used to cover the back side of the wreath. Once I've traced that, I'm going to cut the shape out and then just put that to the side for later. I have these circle plastic canvases that I got in a pack, and I'm going to use this for the center. If you have a large sheet like this one, you could trace the center of the heart and cut that out from the canvas and use that. But I really like using the circle ones because it's just easier for me to see exactly where the center is, and I don't have to do any cutting, so that's just one step I don't have to do. So now I'm taking some zip ties and I'm going to attach the plastic canvas to the metal frame. Make sure you attach it really good so it doesn't move around, and then cut off the excess zip ties. Now I'm taking my mesh and I'm cutting it into pieces of 10 inches. These pieces I'm going to call the petals. The first petal is going directly in the center of the plastic canvas, so I'm just sticking the zip tie through one of the holes and right back up through the hole next to it. For the center petal, I'm going to start with a black piece, and I have it facing up, and I'm folding it diagonally. From here, I'm going to take this side and fold it down. Then from here, I'm going to roll this piece to the other side. And with this little edge here, I'm going to fold that down. And this will be the center petal of the rose. Now I'm attaching the center petal to the zip tie. Make sure you include that side that was folded down when you tighten the zip tie because you don't want it to unravel. Once that is secure, cut the excess zip tie and mesh. Now I'm going to be working in sets or groups of petals. So the next group of petals will be 2 petals. And the way I determine where to place my petals is to place them 5 squares away from the center petal. So here I'm starting from the center petal and I'm counting 5 squares out. I'm moving my zip tie up just a little bit, but I'm still in that same row, 5 squares away from the center petal. I'm pushing my zip tie down through the hole. It is a little difficult because the zip tie is wider than the actual hole. And now I'm pushing the zip tie up through the bottom. I'm attaching my second zip tie right across from the first one. You can count out the 5 squares for the other side, but I like to start at the first zip tie and just follow that row to the other side. Please don't think that it has to be the exact same as mine. It is okay if your petal placement is a little different than mine. It's all going to come together nicely once we start wrapping the petals. I'm going to take a red piece of mesh facing up, and I'm going to fold this piece diagonally. And instead of folding it and rolling it like we did the first piece, I'm going to start about 1.5 inches from the bottom and pinch from one side to the other. Lay that piece over the zip tie. The bottom part of the petal is facing away from the center, and then secure the zip tie. Once those are secure in the zip tie, cut off the excess zip tie and mesh. Now that I have the 2 petals secure, I'm starting with the red petal, and I'm just simply wrapping it around the center petal. I'm starting on one side of the petal and wrapping it around that center petal. As you're wrapping it around, make sure to keep the sides of the petal close to the bottom, because that's where I'm going to apply the hot glue. I'm gluing the sides down right on the back side of the petal. I'm going to attach the clip here to allow the glue to dry for about a minute or 2. Once the glue is dry, I'm coming around and I'm doing the same thing for the black petal. Wrap that around the red petal. I'm able to wrap this petal all the way around the red one, so I'm actually gluing the sides of the black petal together. Here I'm cutting off that piece of mesh that's sticking out. You can do this part before you wrap the petals. The next row, I'm counting 3 squares away from my last row, and this will be a group of 3 petals. I'm moving the zip ties over because I want to spread the petals apart. So I'm going to push my zip tie through the front of the wreath and right back down a few squares over. Now I'm going to evenly space out my next 2 petals around the last group, and I'm still 3 squares away from that last group. Here I'm prepping my zip ties by placing the end through the zip tie a little bit, but not all the way through. This group I'm using 2 reds and 1 black, and I'm placing the end of the petal through the zip tie, then pulling the zip tie all the way to secure the petal. This time I'm starting with the red, and the same thing I did for the last group, I'm going to start wrapping the petals around the center. You can glue them one at a time, but I'm going to continue to wrap all 3 petals around before I start gluing. The next group will be 4 petals, and I'm going to count 3 squares from the last group. I want to evenly space the 4 petals, so I'm moving my zip tie over, then pushing the zip tie through the front and right back down a few squares over. The next 3 zip ties will be evenly spaced around that last group, still 3 squares away from that last group. I'm going to add my mesh to the zip ties off camera, so pause the video if you need to here. I have my 4 petals on here, 2 reds and 2 blacks, and now I'm starting to loosely wrap them around the center. The good thing about getting to this point with this many petals is that the mesh kind of stays in place without the glue. So play around with it just like I'm doing, then glue it when you are satisfied with it. I don't think I wrap them all the same way for each wreath that I do, and sometimes I do have to pull them apart and start over. So if you feel frustrated at all, just take a break and come back to it later because this doesn't have to get done all in one day. The next row will be the same pattern as the last group. Count 3 squares away from the last group, and this will be a group of 4 petals. For the last two rows on the canvas, I'm going to add my petals slightly different than before. I'm sliding my mesh through the zip tie the opposite way. So instead of that end piece facing away from the center, it's going to be facing towards the center. To wrap this group of petals, I did sort of a pattern. I took one side of a petal and wrapped it in front of the petal next to it. Here I'm taking the unglued side of each petal and wrapping it right behind the petal that's next to it. And I'm using some clips to hold it in place before I glue it down. I'm getting an idea of how tight or loose I want these petals. And once I like it, I'm going to go ahead and glue them down. The last row was 3 squares away from the previous row, which turned out to be about 2 squares from the edge of the canvas. And this will be a group of 4 petals. Here is the fun part, and now we're gonna start making the shape of the heart. I'm flipping it over so you can see it better, but now we are working on the metal frame. On the inner ring, on one side, I'm adding 3 zip ties, 1 to the curved part of the frame and 2 on the straight part. The zip ties are going to move around, but that's okay. They will stay put once we start gluing. Then do the same thing on the other side. Grab a petal and just stick it through the zip tie and tightly secure it. I went with the black piece because of that red piece on the outside from the last row. I have all 6 of my petals attached, and I'm pulling that middle petal in front of the top petal. This is going to be the beginning of that rounded part of the heart. Here is where I plan on gluing my petal. I'm going to add a clip right here and just continue to work and position my petals before they are permanently glued down. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side to get an idea of how I want it before I glue it down. And now I'm incorporating in those petals at the bottom. Now we have two more groups left. I'm working on the center ring of the frame, and each side will have 4 petals. I'm going to add 2 zip ties to the curved part and 2 zip ties to the straight part. Once I have my zip ties in place, I'm going to add my petals and then cut off the excess zip ties. Now I have my 8 petals. I'm going to continue to work on that heart shape, starting with the 2 petals at the top on one side. I'm going to do the same thing I did with the last root. I'm going to hold it in place with a clip so I can work with the rest of the petals and get an idea of how I want it to look before I permanently glue it down. I like to work with the top petals first because I feel like this is the most important part in making it look like a heart. And once I have those how I like them, it's a lot easier to incorporate the petals at the bottom. I decided to add another petal to the bottom of the center ring on the frame. I felt this was needed to fill in the bottom. This petal, I'm going to glue it on both sides. This is going to help start forming the bottom part of the heart. Here we are on the last row. We are almost done. For this group, I'm using a total of 11 petals, 5 on each side, then 1 all the way at the bottom that I attached a little later in the video. And we are working on the outer ring of the frame. I'm attaching 3 zip ties to the curved part of the frame, then 2 zip ties on the straight part. So here I have my 10 petals on, 5 on each side. I love how the zip ties can move. I think it's easier to work with when I can slide my petals closer together or away. This last group is really going to bring out that heart shape, and I'm working this group the same way as the previous row. These petals are overlapping each other, and I like that pattern, so I'm going to work with that pattern. You'll see me fidget with it and change a few things before I actually glue it down. So again, take your time. If something doesn't look right, take the petals apart and try it a different way. I've attached the last petal, and with that petal, you'll want to start creating the V shape at the bottom of the heart. The last thing I'm going to do is attach a pipe cleaner to the top of the metal frame so it will be hung straight. Then I'm going to take my felt that I cut out at the very beginning and glue it to the back of the frame. Before I do glue the felt, I'm going to cut some of that excess mesh left over from the petals.